So, Anissa has fought Invincible, Omni-Man, Alan the Alien, Adam Eve, and even Thrag, and these are some of the most strongest characters in their universe. By Earth standards, Viltrumites are monsters, and Anissa follows the Viltrumites' way with full devotion. So I'm not going to explain all her powers and abilities because she's a Viltrumite, and she has exactly similar powers like Omni-Man and Invincible. The main focus will be on what kind of a character she is, how she used her powers, and what are some of her greatest feats. Almost nothing is known about Anissa, except the fact that she's hundreds of years old and may have participated in and survived the Great Purge and joined the survivors in their Viltrumite Universal Expansion goals. After performing well in countless missions, she ultimately got recognized as one of the most powerful Viltrumite warriors, perhaps stronger than other veterans of the Great Purge. Later, she also managed to survive the effects of the Scourge virus and was one of the very few remaining Viltrumites. Anissa is a Viltrumite to the core, and her desires in life are influenced by three main concepts: utter loyalty to the Viltrumite Empire, physical strength above all else, and glory in battle. These three concepts are all that truly matters to her, and this hasn't altered at all during her time on planet Earth. She hasn't bothered to integrate with the human beings that surround her, and she tends to look upon them as lesser beings. This being said, Anissa is not psychotic or sociopathic by any means. In fact, Anissa's assignment to initially convince Invincible of the Viltrumites' benevolent intentions, as well as Conquest's comments on the similar, led one to believe that Anissa's weapon of choice is diplomacy when first approaching a potential member of the Viltrumite Empire, rather than simply ravaging the planet. One can only assume that if a planet's people were willing to join the Viltrumite Empire peacefully, she would graciously accept their surrender and work diligently to improve the quality of their lives. Whether or not this behavior is due to a sense of benevolence on her behalf or a simple practicality about rebuilding a devastated planet is unknown. In her first appearance, she tried diplomacy with Mark, showing that she has some manipulative skills. But she soon loses her temper and goes back to threats and fighting. Just like all other Viltrumites, she is not prone to bursts of anger and seems to have no empathy. She takes what she wants with no regard for other people's feelings, as is shown when she sexually assaults Mark. She takes that even further by harassing him every time they see each other, clearly deriving pleasure from her cruelty. Even when the Viltrumites start living on Earth and forming families, she still doesn't mingle with humans. She is arrogant and thinks humans are beneath her. However, with the passage of time, she is slowly reformed. She marries a man named Scott and raises their daughter alongside the son she had with Mark. Unfortunately, we don't get to see how her evolution came to be, and it is only stated that her relationship with Scott changed her from a cruel murderer and rapist to a family woman capable of self-sacrifice. Determining Anissa's level of strength is easy compared to some other characters in the Invincible universe, and it's because she is a Viltrumite, and we can take a look at her feats to measure her strength. So basically, Anissa possesses the vast superhuman strength that one would expect to find in a Viltrumite woman of her age, height, weight, and build, who engages in intense regular combat. She's one of the last living full-blooded Viltrumite women in the universe. Her alien biology grants her unbelievable superhuman strength, speed, durability, stamina, and the gift of unaided flight. Anissa possesses these traits in quantities that dwarf those of all known Earthborn superheroes. Like all Viltrumites, Anissa ages at a mere fraction of the rate that humans do, and can fully expect to live for thousands of years as long as she doesn't meet an unexpected and violent end. She first comes to Earth and appears while Mark is having lunch with his mother and threatens to kill Debbie Grayson if he doesn't go with her. Then she apologizes for the threat, but says it was necessary for him to follow her. Anissa inquires about Mark's progress in preparing Earth for the Viltrumites, and he says there was none. he prepares to fight, but Anissa argues that with the Viltrumites' help, Earth would become a paradise for centuries. Great technology, no war, no hunger, no disease. The only caveat is that after the Viltrum Empire finished extracting Earth's resources, the planet would be destroyed. But when Mark reaffirms he's not going to help the Viltrumites, Anissa attacks and subdues him. She says that another agent will take his place and kill him if he doesn't obey. This could be in 5 months or 5 years, and she hopes he will come to his senses. So I don't know why Anissa acted this way, but she tried to talk and convince Mark to join the Viltrum Empire. And it's not how Viltrumites work. They just come in guns blazing and kill, and talking is not an option for them. But I think female Viltrumites like Anissa are generally calmer than the males, and I think it's also the case with their strength, and female Viltrumites are generally weaker than the males. But that's only applicable when we are talking about pure-blooded Viltrumites, and compared to Earth's superhero, Anissa is much stronger. She can beat Earth-based heroes like Immortal, Black Samson, Monster Girl, Shapesmith, and even Oliver Grayson and Mark Grayson. She has managed to overpower Mark Grayson on multiple occasions, but since Mark was hundreds of years younger than her, it wasn't always a fair fight, and whenever they fought, Mark never intended to kill or seriously injure her. We get to see this when Mark fought Thula. Initially, he was hesitating to hurt her, but when he decided to fight like a Viltrumite, he quickly overpowered Thula, and I assume if he fought against Anissa like he did with Thula, the outcome of their battle would be different. Later on in the series, Mark keeps getting stronger after each of his fights, and the gap between his and Anissa's strength is not that much. Anissa is stronger than the average Viltrumite, but she falls behind when compared to Viltrumites like Nolan, Conquest, Craig, and the Grand Regent Thrag. However, she's stronger than Thraxan Viltrumite hybrids like Oliver, and during the final battle, she easily killed dozens of Thrag's elite Thraxan hybrid children. She's also weak against all the traditional Viltrumites' weaknesses, like the Scourge virus and the Ragnars. When Mark escapes from an alternate reality and meets with Eve, but she broke up with him because he went missing for months again and didn't listen to her. Mark is the lowest he's been for a while. The love of his life broke up with him, and he only knows about Rex's plan to dominate the world. Then he stumbles into Anissa, and she tells Mark the Viltrumite males are performing their procreation duties, but that she refuses to mate with humans. So he is her target. But Mark flies away, but Anissa follows him, and Mark says he doesn't want to fight her. Anissa says she doesn't want to fight, but fulfill her duties by procreating with him, but he refuses. The female Viltrumite says the human way has failed, so now she's going to have to do it the Viltrumite way. So they fight, but she subjugates and rapes Mark. Despite the physical abuse, she also abuses Mark psychologically by saying she doesn't care what he wants, that the assault would happen again, and that he should man up. Later, Omni-Man explains that this wasn't Anissa's fault because this was how Viltrumites used to choose mates on their planets. The stronger ones always used to force themselves on the weaker ones. This also reminded me of the scene where Anissa and Alan were fighting, and she tells Alan that even her fourth husband couldn't hit her like Alan did. So does this mean that she had forced herself on 4 other Viltrumites, or was it the other way around? I don't know about her husbands, but when it comes to Alan, he's definitely stronger than her. When they fought for the first time, Alan had already gotten stronger after his previous beatdown, and he was capable of taking down a Viltrumite on his own. Later, he even demonstrated this by killing Viltrumites with 1 hit, and then during the Viltrumite War, when Anissa and other Viltrumites were beating Alan, they only managed to break his arm, and this shows how much stronger he has already gotten. At the beginning of issue 137, we see the Viltrumites among their human families. That's when we see Anissa be vulnerable for the first time. She talks to her husband while she looks at her children about how lucky she is. Scott says that she can fly to the stars and walk to the moon, and he wonders if all that is enough for her. Anissa says traveling through space is lonely, and that before meeting him, she wasn't herself. She doesn't want to be that person anymore, because it scares her. He taught her so many important things, and now she's happy with him on Earth. Right then, Nolan calls and she has to leave for battle. This moment is really beautiful. It is really palpable that Anissa has changed, and it is rewarding to see her acknowledge how horrible she was. This is one of the most heartfelt conversations in the comic, and I'm glad it exists. Still, it is a bummer that we don't see Anissa's growth process. The Viltrumites under Nolan's command fight against Thrag's army of half-blooded Viltrumites. Thrag procreated with hundreds of Thraxans' females, and this species dies in about 9 months, but the offspring of Viltrumites and Thraxans live a long lifespan and age at a fast pace. Hence, Thrag was able to create an army of hybrid teenage Viltrumites in 5 years. So, one of the bloodiest battles I've ever seen in the comics ensues, and Anissa is rocking all the punches. Soon, Thrag punches Nolan so strongly that he rips him in half. Eve is watching the fight from the ship but sets out to rescue Nolan. When Eve is in danger and her force field is broken, Anissa rescues her. She tells Eve that Mark needs her and she can't die. Eve wants to help, but Anissa says she should get to safety. Soon, a Ragnar alien injures Anissa badly, and Eve uses her force field to rescue her too. Anissa says Eve should leave her and focus on Nolan, but Eve replies that Anissa saved her life and she is going to repay the favor. Seeing she is about to die, Anissa asks Eve to tell Mark she is sorry and that she didn't understand what she was doing, but she adds she doesn't regret what she did and he will understand when he sees him, referring to her son Marky. Eve says she will tell him herself and takes them to the Viltrumite base. But this issue is the last with Anissa, as we learn later on she died. So overall, Anissa is a very strong character, but she falls behind when compared to Grand Regent Thrag, Emperor Nolan, adult Mark Grayson, and Alan the Alien. I'm not saying this because of the difference in their raw power. One major factor is their healing abilities. Viltrumites possess an exceptional healing factor that allows them to recover from injuries at an accelerated rate. This means they can heal from wounds, fractures, and other injuries much faster than a human being. The extent of their healing factor varies among individuals, with some Viltrumites exhibiting more rapid and efficient healing than others. The healing factor of Viltrumites is one of the factors that contributes to their overall resilience in combat. They can endure significant physical trauma and recover relatively quickly, making them formidable opponents. However, even with their impressive healing abilities, Viltrumites are not invincible, and there are limits to what they can regenerate from. Alan, Omni-Man, Invincible, and Thrag, all these guys have been brutally mutilated multiple times, but they manage to recover every time. But on the other hand, Anissa was injured by Ragnar, and after some time, she dies. It's possible that her heart was injured, so she wasn't able to regenerate. But still, the way she dies was not a good standard for a character like her.